First things first, I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow is the end of the early bird for the masterclass. So if you are interested in taking that with me, again, it is 16 weeks plus bonus weeks. So it's actually not just 16 weeks. We actually have 16 weeks of content that I'm working on delivering. And then we also have bonus guests, and we have recordings from previous bonus guests from the last time we ran this. This is actually our third time running this. So I'm excited about that. And our whole focus for this portion of the masterclass, we have 2 masterclasses. For this masterclass, it's all about running your Amazon account, doing advertising, doing content writing, how to file for reimbursements, what does Amazon actually say about how your shipment should go in, what are the latest changes in that, basically all the things that you need to know about how to run on Amazon. And here's the other thing, how to get set up off Amazon. I think that's something that a lot of folks aren't doing as part of their focus, but we want to make sure that you can grow on Amazon, which means in many cases, having an off Amazon presence is required. So we'll be talking about setting up your website, whether you set it up through Shopify or through WordPress. We will have basically a tutorial on how to do that. I personally am a big fan of WordPress. It's much more convenient. It's much more easy to set things up, to create your own pages and so on. But there is a lot to be said for Shopify as well. So we're going to go through both, and then you can choose which one makes most sense for you. We'll also be talking about setting up funnels. So how do you get someone into your mailing list? How do you get someone into your website without paying for advertising, because paying for advertising is expensive. So we'll be going over all kinds of stuff, and then how to use your website to drive additional sales and traffic on Amazon, and use Amazon kind of as a logistics partner in a lot of ways, so that you're not actually having to do much with your website. Once you set it up, it kind of runs itself. Okay, so we're covering a lot of stuff. It's going to be really exciting. So I hope that you'll be there. And again, Christina will have the information up there to make sure that you guys know where you can sign up, but the early bird does end tomorrow. So make sure that updated everyone. Okay, first question for this morning. I no longer want to sell in any EU marketplace, and I don't want to be charged a monthly fee to do it. There's got to be a way to close my EU accounts. They can't make me pay £25 every month till the end of my days. Help. Okay, so the simple answer is Amazon still hasn't figured out how Brexit is going to work. I'm sure they're working on it on the back end, but right now everything is still set up as a pan-EU marketplace. And they'd set it up to be like a pan-EU thing because it's easier, right? It's much easier to do pan-EU than Germany and France and Italy and everything separate. So they had originally set it up to where once you sign up for one, you sign up for all, and all of it's available everywhere. That's like how they wanted it to run. So now that they're having this whole Brexit thing, I'm absolutely convinced they're working on it on the back end. On the front end, it still looks just like pan-EU. So I'm sure that's something where when they finally figured out what Brexit's happening, I mean, everyone's wondering what's going to happen with Brexit, right? So once they finally figure out what's happening with Brexit, then they'll be able to make whatever change that they make. So what my assumption is from this question, although the context isn't clear, is that the requester is asking to get rid of just the EU stuff, not Great Britain. And right now that's not possible. Everything is one at a time. So you have to be signed up for the rest if you're also signed up for Great Britain. So if you want to not have anything sold in the EU, then you just have to delete all your listings. So that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, and then once Brexit happens, and I know everyone's excited to know what'll happen in Brexit because no one knows yet, then we'll know how Amazon responds to it. And I wish I were clairvoyant and could tell you exactly what that is, because I'd be making so much money right now if I knew, but no one does, so we'll all see. Okay, can you tell me the correct way to contact another seller? I want to contact some of the sellers who are selling on my listing regarding our gating policy in a nice, non-conflicting way, of course. So it used to be, and this was up until about 2 months ago, it used to be that you could just go ask a question on the seller's storefront. But there was a lot of abuse that was happening there, with reviewers contacting sellers, with other sellers harassing other sellers. And it appears that Amazon has limited that. The last couple of times we tried to do that, we were able to get like maybe 2 emails through before it didn't work anymore. So that used to be the way to do it, where you just go in and you just go ask a question. Now, the only guaranteed way for you to contact another seller is to buy something from them, which is pretty lame. But that's the only guaranteed way for you to be able to contact another seller right now through Amazon. Okay. Any feedback on AMZ Launchpad software to goose rank? Is it a good tool or flirting with TOS violation? Does Cascadia have any experience working with this group? How long has it been around? Just curious if anyone knows anything. Okay, so when I looked up AMZ Launchpad, it looked like one of these, I'm just going to pop that up again. It looked like one of these typical tools that are out there to try to goose rank. Now, I'm going to start with the first part of this about the concept of goosing rank. So just so you know, that is prohibited in the TOS. There's a lot of things that are prohibited. I always enjoy people being like, but it was never in the rules. Yes, it was. You just didn't read them. There's a few times when Amazon has actually changed the rules, but most of the time, some rule somewhere on some help page, and Amazon's like, well, you should have known it. It was there. And they just make it kind of difficult. So for AMZ Launchpad, I think the thing that I would be most concerned about if I were them is that Amazon actually has a tool called Launchpad, and I have to believe that their lawyers trademarked that. I guess what I'd be worried about, that there's an Amazon Launchpad and then they're calling themselves AMZ Launchpad. As far as the rank question, what I have been seeing is that the giveaways to boost rank just aren't working anymore for a lot of folks. So I don't know if it's the companies that are doing it, if their methodology has changed, if Amazon has gotten better at finding them. I would assume that, to be honest, just knowing the folks who are working on this problem on Amazon, they're really smart. There's one guy in particular that I used to work with who's just brilliant, and he handles managing all incoming traffic to the website. So he's, if he's the one who's in charge of this, I'm absolutely certain that they're going to figure out some great ways to keep sellers from gaming the system. He's really smart, and we used to work with him on a daily basis in my old team. So I would suspect that Amazon's figuring out how to stop this. So that's one thing. The second thing, as I mentioned, is a TOS violation. Just like anything else, it's hard to get banned for it until Amazon figures out a way to find you and connect it to you. So it's kind of hard to tell right now exactly who is causing certain incoming traffic to the website, or if it's someone who's buying support or someone who's paid for it for somebody else. Like, that's difficult. So Amazon usually won't take action until they feel fairly confident that they can tag the action to the perpetrator. So I don't know about enforcement, but it's definitely a TOS violation. Do we have an experience working with this group? No, we don't. We don't use any launch services. We don't work with any launch tools because of exactly this. It's been prohibited for years. There's no point at which launch tools were okay, manipulating rank being okay. Amazon wants the best product to show up for the customer. That means that you manipulating rank is messing with their system. They don't like that. And I don't know how long it's been around. So generally speaking, the way that Amazon wants you to do ranking is to have two things happen. One, you get more traffic for specific keywords. So if you want to rank for Surface Laptop, then you need to have a listing that ranks for Surface Laptop, right? Because that's how people are looking for things. So that's the first thing, is they want you to actually have a listing content keywords that match what people are looking for. And then to basically rank for those content keywords, you need to run ads. So the ads get you to rank for things that you never had ranked for before. They'll get you attention on things that you hadn't had attention on before. So that's what the advertising part does, is it gets you traffic that you otherwise might not have gotten, getting ranked for things that you otherwise might not have ranked for. And then after that, you can get organic results coming out of that traffic coming in. Okay, so it's pay to play. So either you're going to pay a launch service, which isn't cheap, to do this, and it's TOS violation, or you pay for advertising, which is expensive, also not cheap, but it's in compliance and it helps you to rank for things that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten on Amazon. So I was actually just talking about this with Christina yesterday, just the concept of how people seem to think that the launch services work so well, when the problem is you're basically deciding based on your own interpretation of your product which keywords are going to convert best. And I can promise you that's often not the case. I found that some of the keywords that convert best are things that I never expected. And then you actually see the results in the reports. And you're like, what the heck? Why is that what's actually converting? And yet that's what's converting. So just be careful of the assumption that this is the keyword that's going to make or break your product, because it may not be. Okay. Hi, I have an item in brown. I recently added 2 more colors. I set up a parent ASIN and added all 3 colors as variations. Yeah. Will the existing brown item now no longer have the sales and keyword rank on its own ASIN? It still has the same ASIN and FNSKU just as a child now. Should I have set it up differently? Thanks. All child ASINs have their own rank. Parent ASINs also have their own rank. Nothing can sell on a parent ASIN, so the rank is based on traffic. But the child ASINs have their own rank. So when you look at it on the brand performance track, you can see that some of them will be different and some of them will be the same. It depends on which category you're in. It just seems to be unclear why they're doing that, or the data is wrong. That happens too from Amazon. Sometimes they give you crappy data. But generally speaking, the main challenge with a variation is that a good variation, like the color black, can raise up every other variation. Because just by its existence, it's getting a lot of traffic, it's growing things. But what's really interesting is that sometimes a variation that has high traffic will actually raise the other variations too, even if by itself, it's not getting its own sales. So we had a client who had 5 flavors of a product, and one of them had really high keyword juice, just like that particular name of the flavor was just a really popular search term and it got a ton of traffic. Now his conversion on that one was really crappy. It was like 3%. But when we actually followed the data in the advertising results, a bunch of the ones where they clicked on the ad for that particular high volume keyword, they actually ended up buying one of his other flavors. So even though his conversion was low for that kind of entryway product, the entryway flavor, the other ones ended up performing better as a result of having the ad on that product. So just because you have traffic on one, don't negate the value of that for selling your other ones as well. So we've seen this happen with our number one product. It was an apparel product at Halloween. You always expect black and orange to do well. What was weird is that one of the top keywords for a black item at Halloween was actually the orange plus keyword for the product, which was kind of hilarious because we were like, how does that even work? But when you have this kind of, it's called in a lot of circles a halo effect, to where when someone is looking at one thing, then they see the other one right next to it and they assume, oh, that one's good enough too. Or that one's also good because it was the thing I was looking for. So you just kind of see it kind of next to it. So as far as the rank, the brown item that exists will automatically give the other ones traffic and rank because it's connected to the brown one. Now, the only thing that I would say is that sometimes I've actually separated out ASINs because I could not get ranking to work for the whole variation. Just couldn't get it to happen. And so I actually split out products to their own listings because they were easier to advertise and get traffic to. So it's not always a requirement to variate. Even if it makes sense to vary, even if variation is a thing, it may not actually make sense for your product. You always have to look at the data. I'm always like, where's my reports? How are my reports doing? If the brown doesn't do better, so this one is the existing brown item, and there's 2 new colors. If the brown doesn't do better over time because of the other 2, then you may still want to split those out and have them be their own listings. The easiest thing to do there to make sure that people can still see your other colors is actually to put the other colors down below the fold on your enhanced brand content on a comparison chart. And then people can see the other colors. They can see that you offer other things without having to sacrifice that because of the variation. So in a lot of cases, what I've seen is that if it's a really bad set of variations, other than the top one actually can be dragged down by the other ones. So be careful of that. Is Keepa able to differentiate the rank for ASINs? I'm not familiar with Keepa, to be honest. I typically don't use software. One of the things that people in this industry are doing on a regular basis is they are basically exploiting how crappy Amazon's interface is by developing their own thing. But I'm so used to Amazon giving me, as an employee, I did everything in spreadsheets. I got reports for everything and ran everything in spreadsheets. And so I'm used to just getting spreadsheets and running with it. And so Amazon gives you that brand performance ranking thing, and it works just fine for me. So, I'm just so used to downloading reports and putting them to Excel. I don't usually use tools for this. So I'm not familiar with Keep. I'm sorry. Okay. Next question. According to TOS, it reads that Amazon is not responsible for customer damage items that are returned. I heard on last week's replay that Amazon would refund value on customer damaged items. I've had a recent case where they are stating that they do not reimburse in this case customer damage. I'd like to address it appropriately. Please advise. Yeah, so it's a tricky area. They will often do it if you can make a case that it wouldn't have been damaged if it hadn't been for them in some way, then you can sometimes get a reimbursement. It's tough. So we've gotten reimbursements multiple times by requesting it. It depends on who you get. So that's kind of the thing. So In an automated way, it depends on how they code it in the system. So if someone is receiving a return, the associate at the fulfillment center, they're keying it in and they're putting in information. Depending on how they key it in, then that decides whether or not you get reimbursed. Because all this stuff is pretty manual. There's only a few things that are automated, and even then it has to be set to a particular code by a person. So it depends on how they've keyed it in, because quite often we've seen customer damaged stuff be reimbursed. Now, most of the time, it's warehouse damage stuff that's automatic, right? If it's damage at the warehouse, there's no question. They're going to reimburse you for that. But on the customer side, we've seen it happen, but it's only under certain conditions. And sometimes it's only if the customer didn't touch it in some way. So for example, if it never got received and then it was returned, but the customer said it was refused, it's been weird how we've done it. So always request it, but just understand that sometimes it won't happen. Okay? Carrie, which question are you referring to? Are you referring to the one with the customer damaged items? Yeah. Oh, yes. Should you yes. So I would just resubmit and don't respond to the original case. Do a new case, because the original case will often go to the same associate. It'll get reopened, but just resubmit. But make sure you make some sort of case that it wasn't your fault, that it was in some way Amazon's fault, because you want to try to make it to where the person who is reading it is like, oh, okay, that's totally reasonable. I'll give you a reimbursement on that. Okay. All right. Okay, so the next question is, do you know of an email autoresponder that integrates with Kindle Direct Publishing for self-published books with the print on demand on Amazon's platform? Searching like crazy for something similar to Zon Pages that works with Kindle Direct Publishing. Thanks. Oh, that's fascinating. I have zero idea, but we have been really researching into Kindle Direct Publishing lately because of just how much stuff is changing there and how big it is. It used to be CreateSpace. They changed that, I think, close to 4 to 6 months ago now, something like that. They merged it all into one, and so they've been basically Amazonifying CreateSpace, and so it's gotten really messy. So we've seen a lot of questions, a lot of concerns come out of KDP, and we actually use KDP. So I'm definitely gonna look into that, and I will submit that response in writing after this session, because that's a really great question. Okay, next, how long does it take for product reviews to show up on a new Amazon listing? This is my favorite question today because nobody knows. They have a review process internally. So if it passes all the checks automatically, then it goes right up. It's like within minutes, it's up there. If it doesn't pass all the checks, it goes through a manual review process, or different kinds of, it gets routed differently. And the longest I've seen something take to get posted onto a page is 14 days. Normally it doesn't take that long. Normally if they reject it, it just doesn't show and you're done. If it's been longer than 14 days and it should have been there, then that means they rejected the review. But that's the longest I've seen it take. So isn't it so annoying? It can be either minutes or it can be up to 2 weeks. And it depends on how long they're taking to go through their queue, whatever got sent into whatever that manual process is that they're using to review to make sure that no one is submitting fraudulent reviews. Sometimes that takes quite a few days to get through. So that's the only problem. So the other thing that I would say is if someone's asking about this, that means that they've probably asked someone to review it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be looking for a review. If you have any connection to a person at all, if you have any connection to them as friends, family, or any sort of other thing where it looks like they're connected to you, then Amazon will always err on the side of caution and just not allow the review to be posted. Okay? All right, next question. Do food items that are sealed need to be put in a poly bag? Okay, I think that question is kind of going at it from the wrong direction. The question that you should be asking yourself is never, should I have to put this in a poly bag or not? Your question should be, will this arrive intact to the customer if I don't put it in a poly bag? That's the question, or in a box or in something else. That's the question you need to ask yourself. Will it arrive intact to a customer? Do I have to have additional packaging from Amazon to make this safe to ship to the customer? Then you need to repackage. So it's not so much about whether it needs to be sealed or whether it is sealed or it's not sealed and then in a poly bag or not in a poly bag. It's, does this widget have sufficient packaging as is or with a poly bag to make it to the customer? If it needs a poly bag it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So the basic question is no. If the food is sealed, it does not need to be put in a poly bag. That is the policy. but the product needs to be able to make it directly to the customer. So if the product is sealed, but say maybe it's the kind of product, we've had this happen before multiple times with supplements, with certain clients, depending on the methodology that their manufacturer used to seal it, sometimes the glue on the top can come loose. So it'll be jostled and bounced around inside of a box, and then it'll arrive and the seal on the product will actually be too loose. And then someone will say, oh, this looks like it was already opened. So that's kind of like, it's a one-off, but when it happens, it can shut down your whole listing. So just be careful of that's one of the things that you should be careful of. Can it arrive intact to the customer? If not, then you need to polybag it or put it in a box or something. It's not about whether it's sealed or not, because just because it's sealed doesn't mean that it's safe enough to get to a customer. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Tandy asked a follow-up question. Do you think everything should be polybagged because of the nature of the environment of the warehouse? For example, would you polybag books? No, and the reason why is because certain things are stored in different places. So media is always stored in a different place that looks like a library. It's actually a really cool location. It's like, it feels like you're in a library. There's really tall shelves that are sorted in certain ways. And so with media, I wouldn't polybag anything because they actually stack it neatly and sort it, and everything is organized just like you're in a library. For most things, so for apparel, you have to polybag everything because of the way that they sort that. It collects dust and it's super nasty. So you'd never send it apparel without a polybag ever. You'd never send it a plush, anything cloth or anything like that. Don't ever send anything like that into Amazon without a polybag because Amazon is dirty. We did a audit years ago for food purposes and asked how many times they cleaned the shelves. And they're like, oh, we're on about a year and a half or so rotation, which means that the shelf got cleaned once annually, maybe at best. They're dirty. So make sure you polybag anything that can collect dust because that's gross. Never polybag media because it goes in a special location. It all goes to a specific location in the fulfillment center just for media. So that's okay. The ones that are kind of in the gray zone are ones that are kind of plastic or paper wrapping that can probably be just fine by themselves. The area where I would say that you should be careful there is if you have shrink wrap. Shrink wrap is easily damaged at Amazon. So if you have shrink wrap, you might want to still polybag it if it matters to the customer that arrives intact. For example, Apple products. Apple products are always packaged in white and they're shrink wrapped. And then when they arrive, if the shrink wrap is broken or if the white is all dusty, people get mad. So for those ones, I would say always polybag because the packaging is important to arrive intact. For other things where it's just a regular old box, whatever, just go for it. It doesn't matter. You don't need a polybag. So just kind of think, okay, what is the customer going to expect of this? What kind of damage could be inflicted? For example, if you just had a regular box of shoes, you might be able to pull it off without a polybag. You might be just fine with taping it shut. If you had like Nikes or some sort of collectible shoe, you want to polybag that because you want that box to be pristine. You don't want tape on it. You don't want anything like that. If the book is shrink wrapped, is it going to get all torn up? No, not likely because of the way that the media is stacked. It's all done just exactly like library bookshelves. So it's media is fine. I've never had any problems with media. It's definitely the stuff that goes in regular bins. The stuff in regular bins is quite a bit more likely to get all jacked up. And then, of course, the most important thing is fabric. By far, if you have any sort of fabric element, you want to polybag that. It gets gross, like literally like gummy dust. Like if you haven't cleaned your house in a year and you go behind a bookshelf, that's the kind of gummy dust that I'm talking about. It's super nasty. Okay, last question for today. So if you have any questions, put those up there right away. Actually, no, we have two questions. Sorry, one more came in that I didn't see. With the 2018 Farm Bill, hemp appears to be wide open in all 50 states. I'm seeing lots of sales for various products that don't appear to be gated in most of them. What things should I be looking out for considering when selling CBD products from hemp on Amazon? Thank you. Okay, so CBD oil, there's a couple things. First is it is an oil, and so you want to make sure that you got your SDS, your safety data sheet, showing that it's not above the flash point. Which for hemp oil, it's usually fine. But you just want to make sure you have your SDS because it says oil in the name, so Amazon will check for that. So that's the first thing, just kind of a logistical thing. Make sure that you've got your SDS and it's below the flash point so it can be sold. Second thing is that you have to make sure that it's the CBD oil that doesn't have, I forget the exact term, I'd have to look it up because we've submitted this as appeals to Amazon before to get things back up. But basically it can't be the drug. So cannabinoids, there's a certain term in there that if you put that in there, it'll automatically flag it for review. So basically anything where if you were to take that oil and make brownies and it could make you high, and then you've got a problem, right? That's the main thing that they're looking for, is they're trying to make sure that people aren't selling drugs on Amazon, because no matter what's going to happen in the next few years, because I'm absolutely convinced it's going to become legal in all 50 states. And hopefully all of the people in jail who were there because of marijuana get out and get get to have their lives back. But in any case, can you tell I'm from Washington? By the way, I definitely voted for this to be legal. I want all the tax money to go to the schools, which is what's happening in Washington right now. It's working out really well. So for working on Amazon, it's still not legal in most states, right? I think the only states where it's fully legal are Washington, Colorado, maybe Oregon now. Like there's only like 3 or 4 states, and maybe Vermont. I don't know. Anyway, there's not very many that it's fully legal in yet. So for now, that's the main thing that Amazon's trying to prevent, is someone selling something that could get you high on Amazon. So that's the thing you have to be careful of. I think it's cannabinoids is the name that's got it. It's or cannabinol, I don't know. But there's a particular term, I can look it up later. That's the main thing that you should be worrying about, is if that term is there anywhere, they will flag it and pull it for restricted products. But if it's just regular oil, you should be good to go, actually. It's actually kind of exciting to see this is finally happening. Hemp is a natural product that's stronger even than nylon. So I'm excited. My hippie Washingtonian self just came out. Okay, last question for realsies, unless you guys pop something in before we end, is I understand what FFP is, but what does SIOC exactly mean? FFP is frustration-free packaging, for those who don't know, and SIOC is ships in own container. So SIOC, ships in own container. Some of your stuff may have already been switched over by Amazon to SIOC without you knowing. They do that. So you can file a ticket to them and ask what in your catalog is currently SIOC. If you have a product where the packaging can be shipped by itself to a customer, you can actually set that up to be ships in own container. So if you've got it certified to the Amazon ISTA standard, you can actually have it ship out to Amazon, to the customer cheaper. So for that, it's most important when you're a vendor, because then your shipment allowance goes down. I'm not sure how it affects marketplace sellers yet. I hope that they've got that into where it's cheaper, because it really is cheaper to have it shipped directly out than to have it be in an Amazon box. But you can actually file a ticket to Amazon support, just in your regular FBA. And if you've got something that can be SIOC, you write to them and say, hey, I want this to be shipped in own container. Can you help me get that set up? And then they'll walk you through the process. So it's actually quite helpful to do this if you have bigger products, or if you have a product where people consistently are complaining about the packaging. This happens a lot with like weird shaped items, like really long ones, like curtain pulls or other things that are super long, and the product packaging doesn't fit in a normal box very easily. And so what Amazon will do is they'll find like the biggest box they've got and then stick this long thing in a big box, and then it's like really dumb looking. And so customers will be like, oh, I can't believe this thing's shipped like this. You get reviews where people will mark you down because of Amazon's packaging, which is kind of annoying. If that's the case for you, then you definitely want to see if you can do ships in own container, because it just removes that whole thing, the weirdness of someone getting a box and being like, why is it shipped in like this? That's so weird. So that's what I would say about the SIOC thing, the SIOC. Basically everything that we had for Amazon Basics was SIOC, that were big. For the little ones, like the cords and the cables and stuff, those were all just FFP, and they would go in regular box. But all the big stuff, anything furniture related, we always made sure was SIOC, just because you don't want it to show up in another box. That would be silly. It looks like Kathy had asked a brand analytics question. So let me see if I can pop that open, since you did get that in exactly what I said, Kathy. We're closing down shop unless you've got a picture, unless you've got a question, sorry. And then you sent that one in, so I want to make sure I get to that. Let's see. Okay, I don't see it really quickly. Would you be able to copy paste that in, Kathy, if that's possible? I want to make sure that I'm able to answer that. Oh, okay, I read an article that says it's coming. What are the dates? Yes, I read that same article. I was super excited. So retail analytics is something that's in Vendor Central. It's one of the very few things that Vendor Central has on Seller Central in terms of format and structure. Vendor Central is terrible. So the Vendor Central is like hasn't changed in almost 20 years. It's so old. But the retail analytics sheet is really cool because it gives you information about your customer. So I think this is going to come around the same time as the display ad improvements. So right now display ads are not great. The first one I did had like 60% ACOS, and then it just kind of dropped from there until it was well in the hundreds, and I turned it off. It wasn't going to recover. But generally speaking, display ads, remarketing ads, you say who you want to remarket to. You don't just remarket to everybody. And you basically market based on what information you get. So your demographics, how old is this person? What did they previously buy? What kind of traffic did they have on the page? This is the kind of thing you normally get in from Facebook or from Google. You get that kind of data. The retail analytics focus, and they're calling it brand analytics, of course, because it's coming to marketplace. But what retail analytics gives you is that information. It tells you demographic data about your customers. It tells you the value of certain customers, how many reorders did they have. So there's a lot of really interesting analytics that you can get out of that. And I hope they're bringing it all over. And I hope they're building it into the display ads, because right now the display ads are kind of pointless. I would rather say display ads only to those people who have bought from me before, because then they're more likely to buy depending on the product, or only display ads to those people who refreshed my page 3 times. Or, there's like, if Amazon gave you those options, you could do so much cool stuff with advertising. But well, one thing at a time. So who knows when it's coming? Display ads were in beta about a month ago and still haven't been rolled out to everybody. So I don't know exactly what they're testing, but I do know, I think it was August last year, marketplace ads, AMG and AMS all merged into one group. And so typically at Amazon, it's run on a sprint cycle is what it's usually called. The sprint cycle is done on a monthly basis. So a 30-day sprint is what it's called from a tech perspective. And so you basically chunk out all of the tech you need to build into 30-day sprints or less. And then the whole tech team is assigned to certain things, and they're tagged every 30 days. You try to make your goals for that 30 days. So if they only merged last August, they've only had, maybe 5 sprints as a single group to get all this stuff done. And in those 5 sprints, they have gotten the sponsor brand API changed. They have added a whole bunch of placement data. They've added, you can start seeing it like once a month, something new pops up. That's because of this monthly sprint thing. So if it's coming, if it's being tested right now, and display ads were tested last month, and retail analytics is all about using display ads in different places, they kind of work together. I'm hoping that means it's coming in the next couple months. That'll be super, super exciting. But basically, it's just another way to target your customer. The other thing that really helps with your brand analytics thing, if it gives you your age, your target demo, you can change your words. So for example, the kind of words that you would use to describe something if your target audience is millennial is going to be slightly different than if your target audience is boomers, right? Your words will actually change. The phrases that people use change from when they were born, and the kind of zeitgeist that was around at the time that they were growing up. They use different words, or if they're from different parts of the country. If you do really well in the South, then you're going to have slightly different words than if you do really well on the West Coast, for example. Obviously, it's much more obvious if you're trying to sell in the UK or Britain or in Australia than it is here. But still, there's regional differences and regional expectations. So I'm excited to see that come. But that's what I'm most excited about it for. Is it really makes a difference with advertising, and it also means that you can change your images. If you know your demographics, then you can make sure to get a model who's younger or who's older. There's just a lot of ways that you can use that data. So yeah, Kathy, I saw the same thing. I'm like, yes, it's finally coming, because it's so expensive on the vendor side. We've never had a vendor that we've worked with who actually paid for it. It starts at like $30K or something a year. Like, it's insanely expensive. Like, no one we've ever worked with has bothered to pay for that. We obviously had it when we were internal, because you have all the data, so it's fine. But for external, it's just so expensive. So if they're giving this away, I'm sure it's going to be a simpler version than what the vendors get, because the vendors are paying a lot of money for it. So I'm sure it's going to be a simpler version, but still any of it will be worthwhile. And then it used to be that they launched with the simple version of the enhanced brand content, just like one version of it on Marketplace. And that was like the whole thing, like, oh, Marketplace folks just get like the light version or whatever. So they may do that at first, but then now it's exactly the same. Enhanced brand content is the same in both locations. So hopefully they do that with retail analytics too. Maybe a light version and then they spread it out. Okay. All right. So that is it for today. And I hope that everyone got something great out of today. And we are going to enjoy the sunshine here. It rained yesterday. I'm not used to this kind of rain. Rain in Washington is a drizzle. Rain here was like a bucket of water being poured out on the ground. It was amazing. And then I just want to make sure that you have, and if you have any questions about the masterclass, let us know. And it is, again, tomorrow is the end of the early bird, and we would love, love, love to see you there. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.